Hello, hello. Very excited to be here and very excited for this panel on moving the needle for mass adoption in crypto. I figured we'd start off by doing some quick introductions. I am Alexis Johnson, the co-founder and CEO of Lightnode Ventures. Lightnode Ventures is a Web3 venture studio and growth consulting firm based out of New York. We've been in this space for over 7 years.
Hi, my name is Anthony Anzalone. I go by Burnt Banksy because about 4 years ago I bought a Banksy art piece, lit it on fire, sold it as an NFT, and then broke all NFT records. And then founded XION, raised about 36 million to make crypto actually usable.
My name is Timothy Stebbing. I'm working at the Dogecoin Foundation and our commercial arm, House of Doge. I've been at the Dogecoin Foundation, the not-for-profit organization, for about 5 years now.
Amazing, amazing. So first question, when it comes to defining mass adoption, right? From your perspective, what does true mass adoption look like in crypto? Is it measured in users, transactions, or cultural relevance?
Ooh, that's a good one. You want to take that first?
Yeah, I'll go first on that one. I think true crypto mass adoption comes when you can spend it. I mean, where I'm from, Australia, I think about 30% of people hold cryptocurrency. But you can't spend that. You can't go into a shop. I mean, unless you're using a Visa card that's backed by crypto or something like that. But in terms of truly using crypto, going and like scanning a QR code, a layer one transaction, that's really where we want to see crypto getting to in the next maybe 5 years. And I think that when you can do that, when you can go to any country on the world, when I can come to Korea and I can buy a coffee down the road with Dogecoin or with whatever your crypto is, I believe then we've made it.
I tend to agree with that. I think, but I think when it's completely gone is when it really is like we've made it, where people stop saying Web3 and it's Web2. But I do like the point on kind of cultural dominance. I think that's something really exciting. And I remember the feeling, because when we did the Burnt Banksy, I think there was an episode on The Simpsons where they Bart made a painting and then lit it on fire and sold it as an NFT. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And I think we're seeing cultural relevance. I know Dogecoin was on SNL, and there's cultural dominance as well, which I think really pushed the needle more than just buying a cup of coffee, because it's this first time that you get this global awareness, which is always so awesome to be a part of.
100%. And when it comes to onboarding and user experience, what's the single biggest friction point today in onboarding new users, and how are each of your projects addressing it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say wallets are probably the biggest. I think that and this informational gap where you have to know exactly what you're doing, I think that's awful. There's like a 95% user drop-off rate. That sucks. I think it's, and the way that we're building that is everything's a smart contract account. We brought that 95% drop-off rate to 3%, and I think we see about 100,000 daily actives. So it's exciting and it works,
I think I'd agree. I think convincing people who aren't used to crypto that they are their own bank now, I think that's a hurdle. And then getting them to understand that, well, if you're your own bank, you need to look after something, and that's your keys. I think that's a technical hurdle that we need to help people get over. As for what's my project doing, I mean, Dogecoin itself, there are many different Dogecoin wallets, and so things that I think are interesting in that space are potentially decentralized secure enclaves for key storage, that sort of technology, which is going to make it easier for the layperson to hold crypto in a secure way, still in a decentralized manner, but they don't have to manage their keys themselves, that sort of thing, I think.
And next question for you, Tim, when it comes to culture and memes, Dogecoin has grown from memes into a movement. And how important is culture versus technology in driving mass adoption?
That's a great question. Look, I think both of those things, technology and culture, are critical, that they marry in the middle. If the technology doesn't work, then there's nothing, right? But culture, absolutely, because money itself is a meme. Like if you go back a few hundred years, or go back 1,000 years, people weren't trading US dollars or Australian dollars or wherever you're from. They were trading maybe gold or something else. And then before that, I don't know what, feathers, different things, right? And each one of those currencies holds value in that culture because the people of that culture believe in it. And it's that belief which is what makes a currency valuable. And memes are the means by which belief is transferred on the internet. So when Dogecoin came along, we call it the accidental cryptocurrency. It was the first time that someone took a meme and joined it to a cryptocurrency, and we found out that there was this crazy fusion between a belief system, or which is what a meme is ultimately, and a cryptocurrency that gave it real value.
Yes, and next question for you, Anthony. For Zion, you guys have pioneered abstracted accounts and leveraging invisible blockchain infrastructure. Do users really need to know that they're using crypto for adoption to scale?
No, not at all. Great question. I'm actually going to answer this question though. It's pretty cool because I think that like you guys did a really good job at defining culture, and I think you guys took a really interesting like culture first approach. Quite honestly, I didn't know that you had like the own operating system, wallets, and I actually thought it was just pure culture for quite some time. And I think there's a huge power in that as well, which is like most of the times I'll get a text from my cousin and be like, should I buy Dogecoin right now? And I'm like, do you even know what I do? Like, it's so annoying. But it really is just kind of proof that, like, I think culture is so dominant. And, like, we saw that with the Burnt Banksy. We see that with Dogecoin especially. And I think that, to the same point, no one actually cares about the tech. Maybe they benefit off of it. But people really do only care about the culture. And if you can meet them where they are, that's phenomenal. Sorry for... It was a cooler question, sorry.
Your question that I had for you is around like, do users really need to know that they're using crypto to scale?
Yeah, the answer's no. Yeah.
Yes, and so when it comes to like verticals for mass adoption, right? We've seen obviously with stablecoins and payments, this influx of a bunch of users, DeFi as well. Now we're seeing a lot of rise when it comes to AI, gaming, tokenized assets. Which verticals are the most likely to onboard the next 100 million users, in your opinion?
Probably out of that list, real-world assets, I think. When you look at what's happening in crypto today, what the new things coming on board are. I mean, I'm not talking about payments now because we've done that. I think real-world asset investment, you're going to see what were traditionally stocks on an exchange like the Nasdaq. Companies are going to move on to the blockchain. But beyond that, you're going to see venues like this venue that we're in. If you can tokenize a venue and then people can invest in that, you're going to see, I think, the sorts of things that previously you may have crowdfunded. Projects that are crowdfundable will be moving onto the blockchain, all of that sort of stuff. So I think that's probably, in terms of impact with the non-crypto community, I think for me, that's probably a big growth area.
I don't remember the list, but I'm just I'll probably say an element of consumer. I think once we can actually get past the hurdle and get people onboarded and remove the friction rates, I think it's just like the natural way of just getting a ton of users. I think, again, making sure they don't know about it. I've been in this industry for long enough to see the word synthetic assets become RWAs, and tokenized securities was before that. And like, I think it's interesting. I think, there's a question to be made of like, well, does this really need to be on the blockchain? Which I think that we're trying to answer, ideally being here. But I think once we can answer that question and actually provide a benefit other than like, hey, it's actually more expensive and slower open database, then yeah, I think then I agree that RWAs will. Or whatever it'll be called at that time.
Yes, and next question. When it comes to partnerships and ecosystem growth, what types of partnerships, whether it be big tech, governments, consumer brands, are most crucial to accelerate mass adoption over the next 2 years?
I can probably take this first. We work with Uber, we work with Nike, and about 130 other Web2 brands. The way we're able to do that is obviously they don't know that they're working with a crypto company. We have a project called EarnOS deployed on us, which is trying to revolutionize marketing. Do they use crypto? Yes. Do they talk about it? No. And so we work with the marketing department, meeting with JetBlue, meeting with Emirates on kind of airline loyalty programs on that. And it kind of just is about providing value. And so if you can just, rather than like, I've been here when Polygon spent $40 million on Starbucks and then that failed, as did like Nike and the other ones. And so it's like, but now we're working with Nike to target Strava users, which does it make sense for it to be crypto? No, but do we get past GDPR with crypto? Yeah. And so, I think that there's a signaling effect that comes with like Nike being like, hey, we're using this, but I think it's if you can provide actual value to Web2 companies, which genuinely does exist in this industry, we just need to stop, kind of talking to ourselves about it, then I think we can hit that.
I think I've got a radically different idea.
Hell yeah.
I think that institutional partnerships will come naturally. I think that when Dogecoin, when we look at adoption, we're trying to lean into the grassroots movement that we started from. And so looking at, well, what is the most grassroots you can get? Now, there are 1.7 billion people on the earth who are unbanked. You're talking about some of the lowest socioeconomic groups in the world from third world countries. And you have farmers, you have people who are being exploited for their resources by middlemen who will not use money because they're unbanked, right? So they'll trade like, beans for wheat or whatever the thing is. And so we're trying to reach those 1.7 billion unbanked. We've got a project at the moment called Radio Doge, which uses HF radio to broadcast Dogecoin transactions over thousands of kilometers without internet. And so in terms of partnerships, we want to be partnering with primary producers, really right at the bottom end of the production line, because we believe that if we can capture the hearts and minds there, then really it's, grassroots adoption of cryptocurrency takes over the world naturally without having to be top down.
Has there been any particular partnership that has been so far instrumental and impactful for your growth at Dogecoin?
I think that it's just the fans, really. I mean, when I say fans, that I mean the users, right? Like, we're all fans, and so because Dogecoin is a decentralized movement, there are no leaders. You have some really big names. I'm not going to mention them. Everyone knows who they are. Who are really into Dogecoin. But they're no more important than the average, person on the street who thinks it's fun and likes dogs. So I think all of the users of Dogecoin are ultimately the greatest partners that Dogecoin has.
And when we think about like regulatory landscape, how do you see regulation helping or hindering the push towards billions of users, and what role should foundations/projects play in shaping it?
I think we might take radical ideas, but you take it first.
All right. What role does a foundation and projects have to play in regulation? I think that governments are really bad at keeping up with technology. And so I think that foundations, especially where you've got an open source foundation, building open protocols that define regulation and that allow people to engage with a cryptocurrency in a way that's safe and protects their assets, and building those as open protocols will help define, before governments come in and regulate, best practice. And so I think that where you have open source foundations, they should be focused in that area, building open protocols so that when the government comes to regulate, they already have direction and they're not going to make stupid choices, basically.
I mean, I tend to agree with that. I've been building in New York for quite some time, and that has been a fucking nightmare. I can't tell you how many banks we've been kicked out of. And, but at the end of the day, it's one of these inevitable things that you kind of just have to do. But I like the idea of keeping it open, like, but you're always going to have bad actors in that, right? Like Sam Bankman-Fried, who was very, very much involved with, U.S. politics and, like, the worst person to be involved in U.S. politics. So there's going to be bad actors. There's going to be regulation. It's good to follow it, like, in my mind, and be kind of on that cutting edge and trying to be involved in that. Just, don't fuck it up for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Since we have about 2 minutes left, would love to hear some quick hot takes from each of you when it comes to mass adoption. What should projects avoid if they're actually looking to scale and onboard 100+ million users?
I have hot takes. You have hot takes?
What should they avoid? What should people avoid? You're talking about new crypto projects? I think just the whole pump and dump thing, I don't know, avoid that. Actually build something useful for people. Yeah. And then provide value. That's it. If you can provide value for people, and then you'll find a market, then you can grow to 100 million people. No worries. But if all you've got is, I hate to say it, if all you got's a logo and there's nothing behind it, right? Build utility. If you're not building utility, then you're just scamming people. So yeah, that would be my hot take.
Yeah. Ripple. And there's no products in this industry. I think that to that point, there's a lot of logos. There's 40 million dexes and 40 million coming every single solitary day. There's zero innovation, zero thought that kind of comes into products, because why would you when some of the top companies in this industry don't actually do anything? And you probably get more bang for your buck by just putting money into billboards than actually building a product. So I think hopefully we can change that, build actual products in this industry, and then actually get users. But up until this point, it hasn't really benefited anyone to build anything.
Definitely very, very interesting points there, and I would agree with many of those points. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I appreciate everybody's input from panelists, and thanks, audience, for tuning in.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, the moderator, Alexis Johnson, and our panelists for such an engaging and